podcast. I'm so excited to welcome my today's guest. His name is David. He is a retired CEO, mentor to Project Sunrise. He works alongside with his son, and he's also the founder of the Church Unity Society. On his free side, he also works as an ordained minister, and his current big mission is to go public and have a multi-million mega church online. What he does through LinkedIn, which I'm very inspired every day, how we met, is that he creates those integrity, faith, and purpose sessions. So he does these prayers, especially to executives, C-suite leaders. It's really about redefining leadership, helping people to integrate faith in the business as well as entrepreneurs, and embracing mindful ethics. I think that's really important, especially for long-term success. Jesus, God is really the foundation in my life, also in David's life with his story. So this whole podcast episode will speak about how you can, as an entrepreneur or C-suite level entrepreneur, just like integrate faith and ethics in your business. Also, at the same time, we'll hear about his story. He has an incredible story and all the lessons that he learned through as well. So thank you so much for coming on, David.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Ozan. I've been a fan of yours for a really long time. I've been following your post, and I'm just honored to be on your podcast.
Thank you. Well, it was so nice to chat with you a little. We just chat before about also about adversity. We went through so many things as well, but at the same time, there's a big presence when you come out of hell, so to say, to kind of, experience the gratitude and the learnings. And I just like want to talk about like in terms of your background. I know that you're a retired CEO and now you work at Sunrise, a project with your son. What inspired you to work at Sunrise? Can you just tell me a little bit more about your background and your journey?
Okay, sure. Well, to answer your first question, I was inspired to work with my son, help my son build a business. I started out as CEO. Now I'm more of a mentor. We'll say a consigliere. I help him out on the volunteer, and I'm doing a lot of volunteering because I
Mm.
really want to see him get successful. I'm very dedicated to the green energy movement. I think it's very important that we save our planet. We conserve our resources. I think God wants us not to treat planet Earth as a garbage pail. There's some people that believe, I believe to a degree, there's global warming. We're changing our environment. We really need to be less dependent on fossil fuels. I don't think we're ever going to be 100% solar or 100% nuclear or fusion, but the more we move in the direction of green energy, the better it is for our planet. That's to answer your first question. The second question is you want to know about my journey. Well, I'm David Vogel, and that's a very, very long question to answer. I mean, my journey started when I was very young. I grew up as an Orthodox Jew in an Orthodox Jewish environment. When I was 26, I got baptized. I accepted the New Testament. I accepted Jesus. Just recently, June of 2023, I started doing sermons live on LinkedIn. A very, very fine coach, Shanae Murray. I mean, she basically told me I have to go live. She beat me up and said, David, you need to go live. I was very reluctant at first because going live, you make a lot of mistakes and you can't edit out your mistakes. But I can tell you this, since June 2023, I've been live 6 days a week. Every day I missed one day. That was circumstances beyond my control. But I've been
Mhm.
live every day, and I'm here for people at 7 a.m. to give them 7 to 10 minutes of God. I do Bible studies now at 7:30 a.m. on LinkedIn. I'm looking to build a church online. Of course, that's a big, big project, but I believe God will be with me. And obviously, I'm looking for board members. That's real important. Me, myself, and I don't make up a church. And
Mm.
I'm looking for people to help. So if there's someone out there that has a calling and they want to serve God, they could always get in touch with me on LinkedIn.
I like your journey around where you mentioned also the faith with Jesus and how that evolved throughout time. Because I had earlier a discussion about someone who asked me, when Christians say, I gave my life to Jesus, what does that mean? Because in some cases, it comes across that the moment you gave your life to Jesus, it's like, oh, I have this big transformation, and then XYZ happened, and I let go of XYZ. I always tell people it's not an overnight thing, because even when you give your life to Jesus, it's like the very beginning when you walk in Christ, and it's not just a point to get delivered, but like walk in dominion, and you keep praying, you keep serving, and it's a constant evolution. Can you share a little bit about your journey, how you transformed from Orthodox Jewish to Christianity, and what compelled you to do this change in your religion?
Started out as an Orthodox Jew, which is basically the Bible. It's the Old Testament. As I evolved, as I got older, I read the New Testament. And then in the 1980s, I got married. My first adversarial situation where adversity struck me, the marriage didn't work out. I ended up just going to church. I had read the New Testament, and I spoke with the minister, and I was convinced that the Old Testament basically supports the New Testament. There are so many prophecies in the Old Testament, and I talk about this in some of my sermons, that Jesus was prophesized, not just as the Messiah, specifically the events of Jesus, the events of the New Testament. They're all there in the Old Testament. To me, there was no question that the New Testament was the Word of God. I accepted that. I got baptized. And there's one other thing I want to add. There's a lot of people who are Christians in name only. Okay. And yes, you could accept Jesus, but it's more than just saying, I accept Jesus. I'm a Christian. You have to live the life. You have to be Christ-like. There's a difference between accepting Jesus and being Christ-like, if that makes sense.
That's a very interesting sentence, because I meet a lot of entrepreneurs who are supposedly very faith driven. You see in their bios, I'm a Christian and everything, but you can feel they're not pragmatically living by that. And I was also surprised, and that's all something I've learned in my own journey. Like, you don't know unless you read the words of God in the Bible, like understanding the Ten Commandments and the things and how stuff are really misunderstood. What are some of the Biblic teachings and things that you maybe in the beginning misunderstood? Like, what were some of your realizations and some of your favorite parts of the Bible that really stood out in your journey for you?
Well, my favorite part of the Bible is treat your neighbor like yourself. We're all neighbors. Right now, here in the United States, the big issue is immigration. Look, there are a lot of criminals that were let into our country illegally, and they were let into our country, and they are committing chaos. They are committing crimes. They are, raping our daughters. They're killing our sons, and that's not good. But by the same token, there are millions, millions more of
Mhm.
good people, immigrants, who are our neighbors. And we have to treat them with compassion. We have to treat them with love and empathy, because a lot of these people have it really, really bad south of the border. I mean, I have a daughter. If I had a daughter in Mexico and the cartel was eyeballing her for nefarious purposes, to be quite honest, I don't care about American law. I'm going to do what I have to save my daughter, if that makes sense. So I have compassion, I have empathy for these people. One of the key elements of the Bible is when Jesus talks about treating neighbors as ourselves, treating foreigners in a proper manner. That's something that I've been preaching about, I've been writing about, and it's something I feel in my heart.
Yeah.
Defines true Christianity, because we can't turn a blind eye to our Mexican neighbors. We can't say they're not our people. There are some people that are saying the Americans are more important. Well, we're a global community. We're all important. I'm not saying the Americans are not important. I'm not saying our people are not important. Everyone's important in God's eyes. Now, true, there are a lot of criminals, and we shouldn't be letting criminals in, but we shouldn't be focusing on the bad element. We should be
Mhm.
focusing on helping people. And the bad element, the criminals, just like American criminals, they're just as bad. I wouldn't want to be the victim of an American criminal. It's not going to make me feel better that that person who tried to shoot me or rob me was an American, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. I think it's so important to have this self-compassion love for ourselves, for other people. I think it's something that through adversity, I've learned personally a lot of self-compassion because I'm like really hard on myself with certain achievements and things. And I know that you mentioned something in your story that really like stood out and shocked me. And it says that you spent 11 years in prison for a crime that you
Yeah.
didn't commit. I mean, it's really extreme. Can you talk a little bit more about this part of your story and what happened?
Oh, absolutely. To give you some background, most of my life, I've been a very, very successful entrepreneur. I was 12 years old. I was running, and this was in the 70s. I'm 64 years old. I was running mail order ads. By the time I was 14, I was making as much money as my father. But the time I was 16 years old, I was making more than my dad. I was very successful. I was making a few $1,000 a week, which back in 1976 for a 16-year-old kid was a lot of money. Okay. Then, later on in life, I was married. Most of my life, I've been in my own business, always successful, following the law. When I was a kid, I admit I did a few bad things. Well, let me confess here. I wasn't the best kid. As a teenager, you might say I was a scoundrel. And I got away with it because in the 70s, I mean, the criminal justice system was really, really bad. You could do a lot of bad things. You could commit murder and get 5, 6 years. I didn't do that, but I wasn't the most honest businessman. But then when I became religious, when I accepted Christ, when I got baptized in my 20s, I always was a very ethical business person. I mean, mindful ethics, that was always on my mind, treating people right. And I was always very, very successful. And
Mhm.
I started a business back in 2000, the year 2000. I had an online medication business, an online medical clinic, but it was not just online. What we did is we accepted patients, pain patients online, but we sent a doctor or a nurse to someone's home, just like an insurance company sends a doctor or a nurse to someone's home to do a physical. And we performed a physical examination. We took blood, we took urine, and we basically conducted a very thorough examination. But it wasn't the doctor that was prescribing the medication. The business model I discussed with my attorney. His name is Douglas Grover. He was a very good attorney. He was the deputy chief of Bobby Kennedy's organized crime strike force. He prosecuted the hierarchy of the New York Mafia. Okay.
Okay.
Very, very sharp guy. And he contacted the government on my behalf and discussed the business model. He took my business model, put it in writing, and asked for an opinion. And they could not say, he testified at my trial. I went to trial. Okay. He testified at my trial that the government could not say I was doing anything illegal. Moreover, the government had a website which described the pain business and the procedure for prescribing pain medication. This website was done in cooperation with some of the top universities here in the United States of America. Doctors, top people, they all contributed to the website. And the protocol on the website was the exact protocol they later prosecuted me for. They took down the website. The website disappeared. They basically, it's like you're shooting at a goal and they move the goalpost. When the facts don't fit the theory, discard the facts. And that's what they did. They discarded the facts. They took down the website. The very protocol that
Mhm.
they approved of, that they had on the United States of America had on their government website, was the same protocol they prosecuted me for. I went to trial. If I didn't go to trial, I would have got a slap on the wrist. They offered me a plea that was literally a
Mhm.
slap on the wrist, but I didn't want to take a criminal conviction. I didn't believe I was a criminal, and I
Mhm.
still stand by my innocence. Obviously, it was very disruptive in my life. going to prison, especially for something that I believe was ethical, I believe was 100% legal.
What was like their main argument why you were like, why they saw you as a criminal? I'm not sure to follow that part.
Their argument was that my doctors were writing prescriptions for medication outside the usual course of professional practice. That's a very subjective standard.
Is it because you're not like officially a doctor in that case? Or like is it
No,
about the person's background or like because you just like outside of the usual like the dosage or like the things, the information that they had a problem with, or is it about your background?
to clarify, I wasn't a doctor. The doctors wrote the prescriptions.
Yeah.
That wasn't the legal issue. The legal issue was the doctors did not write a valid prescription. Even though they wrote that prescription, it wasn't valid under United States law because the doctors, again, this is the language, were operating outside the usual course of professional practice, which
Oh,
is a
wow.
subjective standard. The Supreme Court just recently ruled that it is a subjective standard and the standard must be objective. That is a case that just came down. Of course, it's not helpful to me because in the United States of America, actual innocence is not a reason to revisit your case. So I can't go back to court and say, hey, the Supreme Court just said that my doctor should have been judged on an objective, not a subjective standard. I know that word. I mean, that's just one word, but it means so much because a subjective standard is any standard that the government wants to say is wrong. They basically said my doctors aren't acting like doctors. This is wrong. The crux of their case, according to the government, was that the doctor and the patient didn't physically meet, but we had insurance type nurses or doctors in some cases, most cases, registered nurses or nurses, go out to the patient and conduct the physical. We took blood. We did a Chem 28 blood test. We drug screened our clients. Clients had to provide a urine sample and we screened them for illicit drugs. We went through a very extensive procedure before we approved the client for pain medication.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. But that's really crazy how the like because I heard stories especially in the States where people go to prison although they didn't commit the crime and it happens multiple times. They lose years like that you cannot go, get back. How did you do after that when you were in prison? Like, can you tell us what you've learned, how you experienced that, and how you overcame such an adversity from this?
Well, when I was in prison, it was not a lot of fun. I mean, basically, I'm associating with mostly evil people. There were some good people. There were some really great people I met, people
Mhm.
that didn't belong there and people that did belong there, but they were reformed. They really weren't bad people. But I would say 70, 80% of the people were very evil. They were
Yeah.
bad people. I had to deal with that every day, deal with evil. I had to deal with sociopaths on a regular basis. I mean, people who committed murder. I mean, people who did violent acts. I got through it. If you know my background, I used to work before all this happened. For many years, I worked with the Council for Unity. I was actively involved mentoring gang kids and getting them to make peace instead of fight. That's what Council for Unity does. We go into schools and kids, when I say kids, they're kids, they're 16, 17-year-old kids, but they're into some violent acts. These are drug dealers. These are kids involved in organized crime. These gangs like the Bloods, the Crips, the Latin Kings, they commit violence against each other over territory. My involvement was sitting down with these kids and getting them to make peace. And we were very successful. We turned violent adversaries into a band of brothers. So I had a background, working with the sociopathic mind. That got me through. I got through dealing with a lot of violent people in one piece. I mean, nothing really happened, but yes, I mean, it was very upsetting to my life. 11 years of my life being away from my children getting divorced, losing my wife.
Wow, but what happened with your child during that time when you were in prison?
I have 5 children.
Wow, you have
And
even five. Wow.
my oldest children, they were already teenagers. One of my sons was already 20. He went to medical school. He wasn't really affected. My youngest son, Ethan, was 10 years old, and my daughter, Caitlin, was about 13. They went through a lot of adversity. My ex-wife struggled. She wasn't good at my family. When I was successful, they had everything. I did everything for my family. I had a $4 million apartment at Trump Tower. I had a beautiful home in New Hampshire. I took care of my family. They had everything they needed. And then they were struggling, and my kids were struggling. And yeah, I mean, they had enough to eat. They had food, but they had little else. So it was very, very tough on my little kids, my son Ethan and my daughter Caitlin. The other kids, they helped out, and especially Evan, my second oldest son. Evan, he owns the solar energy company, and he owns a restaurant here in New Hampshire, in Alton, New Hampshire, Taco Bay. Very successful guy, and he helped the family. He's the guy that basically supported the family when I was away. And I owe him a great debt. That's why I'm helping him in business. That's why I'm there. I'm volunteering my time, whether I get paid or not. I'm not getting paid, but I'm not looking to get paid. I'm just looking to pay back a debt because he is a great, great kid and he helped out. And I love him very much.
Wow, that's so beautiful. Despite this horrible story that you had to go to prison, everything, I think it goes back to roots of love, family, and faith. I know that you have a newsletter also speaking about mindful ethics, how that is so important. Can you tell a little bit more what has inspired you to start mindful ethics and how you personally define that and integrate that in your life?
Yeah, well, I started mindful ethics because in business, in life, in government, there's so much unethical behavior. And I'm
Mhm.
also part of another inner circle, Mike Francis. He's the former mafia boss
Mhm.
and he became a born again Christian. And he is very sincere. I've heard his story. It's very powerful. I attend his inner circles, I attend his Bible studies. And he talks about what he calls a mafia democracy, how the government is really like a mafia. And I see that. I see how the government, with this check the box mentality, destroys lives, even if they're well meaning. This check the box mentality destroys lives. And that happened to you. Also in business, mindful ethics, most businesses, some very big businesses, they're very unethical. They do what's profitable, they don't do what's right, they don't do what's ethical. And sometimes they really go over the line. So I decided to publish a newsletter every week. Sometimes I publish my newsletter 2 or 3 times a week,
Mhm.
but at least once a week, I bring to the LinkedIn audience stories of ethics, stories of companies or government agencies that are unethical, including my own. If you've been following my mindful ethics, I'm talking about the retaliation that I'm facing from the government for speaking out, for exercising my First Amendment rights. There was a time just several months ago that I could not do this interview with you. Okay. The government of the United States of America wanted to suppress my First Amendment rights. They even made me sign paperwork under threats of going to jail. I had to sign paperwork that I would not talk to the media. I would not talk to the press. I wouldn't talk to people like you. You're a podcaster, but the way they looked at it, it was the same thing. And I fought hard because not only is that a violation of my First Amendment rights, the person who was attacking me is the very same person, if you know the story here in America, is the very same person who attacked Michael Cohen. Do you know who Michael Cohen is by any chance?
The name it rings a bell, but I don't know too much about him.
Okay.
I think
Mi-
I just like heard the name, but like not much information about him.
Michael Cohen, he was Donald Trump's attorney. And then when he went to jail, he was released like me, white collar criminals here in the United States. I don't consider myself a criminal, but by the government standards, I was. So they release you on home confinement. Well, when Michael Cohen was on home confinement, he was getting ready to release a book about his experiences with Donald Trump. He was getting ready to appear on podcasts like I'm appearing here right now with you. And he was getting ready to do his own podcast. The government made him sign paperwork giving up his First Amendment rights. They didn't want him releasing the book. And they threatened him with jail. And he would not sign. Let me backtrack. He wouldn't sign. He was negotiating with his attorney. His attorney was there, and this fellow at the Bureau of Prisons, Patrick McFarland, revoked Michael Cohen's home confinement status. He put him in solitary confinement for 16 days. For 16 days, Michael Cohen was subjected to torturous conditions in solitary confinement where he had serious, serious health problems, 100-degree temperatures. And this was during COVID. And
Oh,
Michael, oh yeah, I mean,
that is so bad.
yeah, Michael Cohen's health was at risk.
Mhm.
So obviously, being Michael Cohen and being Donald Trump's ex-attorney, he had an army of people, unlike me. He had an army of people file all sorts of court documents. Eventually, a Judge Hellerstein, a federal judge, ruled that Michael Cohen was retaliated against. His First Amendment rights were violated, and Michael Cohen was put back on home confinement. He had the legal right to appear on podcasts, publish his book. His First Amendment rights were restored. Well, the same thing happened to me. The very same person, this Patrick McFarland, tried to suppress my First Amendment rights. He tried to tell me I can't talk to people like you, Ozan. I can't talk to people on Good Morning America. I can't talk to anyone in the press. And I fought hard. I eventually won my First Amendment rights, but the retaliation, it continues. He put me in another program, which is very, very restrictive. Let me tell you something. Just recently, I have the right to do sermons, but he's trying to tell me, and this is like totally like outrageous,
Mhm.
that I can't call myself pastor, even though I'm a legally ordained minister, because
Mhm.
that violates some prison rules. Well, I'm not in prison. I mean, in prison, you can't carry a cell phone. I can. In prison, you can't use a steak knife. I can. It's just like he's coming up with these rules to retaliate against me. And then
But
also just
why can you like not call yourself a pastor? Like what's wrong with that?
he's telling me, at least right now, I'm on Michael Cohen status for another few months. In a few months, I'll be off. So I'm on this status where he's telling me he's quoting a rule in prison, but it doesn't really apply to me. But if he threatens to revoke my status, and he's done this multiple times, and he's been very, very abusive to me, he wrote me a letter. I'll be more than happy to share the letter with you, that calling myself pastor is a violation of the rules, because and that isn't in my rules. It isn't in my terms. Okay.
Mhm.
But he's trying to say that someone in prison can't call themselves pastor because they're using a ministerial
Mhm.
title. But again, someone in prison can't carry a cell phone. When you're on home confinement, you could work. There's a lot of things you could do.
Mhm.
Okay. Another thing, according to my terms and conditions that will last again for another few months, I'm entitled to take any medication that's prescribed by a licensed physician. Well,
Mhm.
just recently, his office sent me a correspondence that I could not take medication I've been taking for 4 years because I'm not authorized. I'm 64 years old. I have a lot of things wrong with me. I have a herniated disc in C5, C6. Okay. I'm in a lot of pain. I'm not showing it, but I'm on the computer all day. I'm writing sermons. I'm writing posts. I'm on my computer 14 hours a day. I am suffering in a lot of pain. I don't want to be a crybaby, but the doctor prescribed me medication. And, McFarland's office is basically telling me I'm not authorized to use this medication. If I use this medication, I could go back to jail for 3 or 4 months, even though a doctor prescribed it, and the terms and conditions of my home confinement allow me to use medications It doesn't allow me to use illegal drugs. I'm not asking to use an illegal drug, but this is a legal medication. So, I mean, it's just like a litany of things they are doing. They're trying to tell me my Church of Unity doesn't conform to their standards. It defies the imagination, but just think. Michael Cohen was in the same situation. Michael Cohen wanted to publish a book. Michael Cohen is negotiating the terms and conditions of his home confinement, and Michael Cohen wants to exercise his First Amendment rights. During negotiation, this Patrick McFarland just has them remanded to solitary confinement. And I will use the word torture because what Michael Cohen went through is torture. 16 days. Amnesty International calls it torture. Michael Cohen also was at serious, serious risk because this was during COVID. And Michael Cohen was released to home confinement because he was susceptible to COVID. He's not a violent guy. They wouldn't let him out if he was violent. What did he do? He negotiated. He raised his voice. He wanted to exercise his First Amendment rights, just like I did. Okay. And the same person says no. And I'm getting a little worked up, but I mean, everyone has a First Amendment right. And the freedom of religion, that's another First Amendment right. I'll be more than happy to share with you my correspondence with this guy, McFarland, on that.
What I'm also curious about is like during the whole process, I can feel there's a lot of like frustration, a lot of like also anger and probably also resentment in that moment. When I speak to you, I mean, obviously you're very open, you healed through certain things and there's this forgiveness, but could you talk through how you could like connect perhaps to your purpose or like what is the thing that helped you get through these tough moments and be able to forgive others, yourself, and be like more in peace with all, of this frustration that you went through?
Okay. What keeps me at peace is God and my thoughts on the future. I have a plan in mind to create a ministry, to create a church. I'm not going to be on Michael Cohen status for very much longer. I believe I'm going to create a mega church online. I pray every morning and I'm at peace. I'm not really angry. I can't say I'm angry. I am frustrated. Okay. It's frustrating because I'm dealing with these government officials that are very, very myopic in their thinking. I mean, let me look at it from his point of view. Okay. Sometimes do that. To his point of view, I'm a lowlife. He probably thinks I'm a crook. Okay. Even though even the government didn't accuse me of stealing money. I'm very, very honest. I'm very meticulous when it comes to money. I've always been very ethical in business. I'll never, ever lie to someone and I'll never cheat anyone. But from McFarland's point of view, I'm a low-life criminal. It's us and them. He's been in the system, he told me, like 25 years, so he's seen a lot of evil. And I could resonate with that because being in prison for that long, I've seen a lot of evil. I've seen people lie, cheat, and steal, and worse. So I could resonate with that. But prison is also supposed to be about rehabilitation, unless you're doing a life sentence for murder. They're supposed to want to rehabilitate you. When I met with 7 officials here in New Hampshire, New Hampshire's a lot different. New Hampshire, even the government people, they're all smiles and they're all nice. It's like night and day. Originally, when I was arrested back, what was it, 2000, no, 2008, no, 2009, I'm 64 years, 2009, in New Hampshire was real peaceful. Self-surrender, no handcuffs. You get down to Texas, where my case was at, if they put you in chains. Okay. The same thing. The attitude here of the New Hampshire government officials are real laid back. They're more friendly. That's why I moved to New Hampshire, to bring my family to a better place. I live in a town where people will stop their cars and let you cross the street if they see you at a crosswalk. I live in the town where people are friendly. They're more honest. I'm not saying there ain't no bad people. There are some bad people. But for the most part, the people are good here. The police, they're very laid back. You don't have police brutality here in New Hampshire. I get stopped for speed. I haven't been stopped for speeding in ages. But when I was younger, I had a lead foot. It's just like night and day from New York. The police are very laid back. They never gave me a ticket. They always gave me another chance, and they're just real friendly. In New York, it's a lot different, and I'm dealing with management in New York, and it's this,
Mhm.
and I'm not really angry. I'm frustrated because I want to move forward at a quicker pace. I mean, my goal is to rebuild. And this
Mhm.
might sound very strange to you, someone at my age, but I want to find a wife and I want to have more children. I really, really want to get married and have children. I love,
Wow.
I mean, yeah. Well, my happiest days, what brought me happiness in life? Nothing brought me more happiness than to waking up and hearing a toddler in the background. My toddlers always woke up before me and my wife, and they're always in the kitchen. They're always smiling and laughing, and I hear the laughter, and it's just so beautiful. It's just so serendipitous, and I want that again.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's so
Uh,
beautiful. And I love that it doesn't surprise me about, rebuilding life at any age. I've talked to also like a lot of people like throughout different age groups. I think people always go through so many identity shifts and the purpose also evolves and you rebuild it again at any given time. Can you tell me a little bit more like how did your purpose evolve from your 20s until now in your 60s? Like did that change? Did you had a common purpose? Like, where do you stand right now? What's evolution look like?
Well, my purpose. Well, I was in my 20s. My purpose really wasn't defined, to be honest. I got married the first time. It didn't work out. We had a kid together, one child. I have five kids, one from my first marriage, four from my second marriage. My purpose really was just to make a lot of money. I got to be honest. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, yes, I was a Christian. I think I was more of a Christian in name, although I believed in God. I believed
Mhm.
in ethics. I always believed in my 20s in mindful ethics, in doing the
Mhm.
right thing. But I was very motivated by money. In my 30s, probably the same thing. In my 40s, I started the health management business. I started an online pain clinic. It was very successful. I was making millions and millions of dollars a year. I took
Mhm.
care of my family. Oh, by the way, I donated a big percentage of what I made to Council for Unity. So not only have I been supporting the organization, mentoring young kids, mentoring gang kids, I supported them financially. As a matter of fact, when they were very close to being closed down because they lacked funds, I came
Mhm.
through with a check because I believed in their mission. So I was giving back. I was giving to my family. I was giving to charity. I didn't really have a care in the world. My purpose really was to help Council for Unity at that time and to help my family and grow my family. I was happily married. Adversity struck that, the issues got very extreme. I ended up
Mhm.
getting divorced. My purpose today, just
Mhm.
fast forward, is to build a church. I don't have that much time left in my life. I realize one day soon, hopefully not too soon, but one day soon I'm going to wake up sick and not get better. That's what happens at my age. So this is the last chapter of my life, and I want to build a church. I want to do something meaningful for God. I mean,
Yeah.
I owe God that, but I want to do something meaningful for myself too. I mean, maybe it's selfish. And what do I want? I want a wife and I want six children. I don't know if I'm going to make six, okay? But I read the story of Al Newhoff, okay? He was the CEO of USA Today. When he was 68 years old, he married a woman 25 years younger, a doctor. It wasn't a mail order bride. She was a very renowned woman, very accomplished. So sometimes age doesn't matter in the right circumstances. And they adopted six children. That story resonates with me. I love that story. I want that to be my legacy. I want kids again.
It's so beautiful that you say that because when somebody asks me like if I can summarize like life in one word, like what's like the purpose, like if in a sentence, it's like for me, like empowering healings. I think there is a calling that Jesus all gave to us, but there is like the thing where I always call it like reproduction. It's always kind of a form of reproduction, like in animals kingdom, in also human kingdom, whether it's through babies and things. And I feel this like the reproduction of like the way, the impact, the legacy, how we rebuild things, how God uses people very strategically to call up to his kingdom and serve different ways. And with your mega church vision online, can you tell us a little bit more about it, how you imagine and how people can like join the mission as well with you?
Well, I imagine a year or two from now, well, maybe not in 1 year, but in, let's say, 2 years, having 1 million people, 1 million followers. I mean, look, Shanae Murray, I love her story. She developed 1 million followers in a very short period of time. I could see with this type of mission, the Church of Unity, developing 1 million followers. What I believe is that God will manifest himself in the goodness of
Mhm.
people. God reveals his divine grace through our shared humanity. Now, we all have diverse faiths, and what the Church of Unity does is it brings them together. The God of Abraham, just remember, connects all of us. The God of Abraham, he marks a shared origin in Christianity, Judaism, and in Islam. Our spiritual narratives are different, but our unified purpose and the purpose of the church is to manifest divine love and divine righteousness. At this church, I want this bond to inspire us as leaders to champion unity, love, and acceptance. Now, the second part of your question, I'm losing my memory.
How can people join the mission?
Right now, I'm in my infancy. I have one person who has stepped up and wants to be a board member. I really need 5 board members. I need 4 more people to join me, people that want to serve God, people to be on the board and make this dream a reality.
And as a board member, what role would that person take on? Can you share some examples so people can imagine themselves if they see themselves as a board member?
Sure, a board member, like any board member of any church, is going to get involved in the day to day, and it doesn't have to be every day. It could be once a week. Let me just clarify, but they're going to get involved in the building of the church. They're going to make decisions. The board
Mhm.
really makes decisions because as eventually I'll be the pastor of the church, whether it's I resolve this issue that we talked about, or I don't resolve it within a few months, I will be pastor of the church. Okay, but the board needs to make financial decisions. It would be a
Mhm.
conflict of interest for me as the pastor to raise money, get donations, and then decide to buy myself a jet plane. Not that I would ever do that. I'm mindful ethics. I believe in mindful ethics. But the board members, they have to determine where money goes, the future of the church, they
Mhm.
make financial decisions, they make administrative. They also, in the right circumstances, if I have the right board members, if they're tech experts, if they're tech nerds like me, they're going to help grow us online. They're going to help promote the church. They're going to help with the marketing.
Yeah. That sounds amazing. Well, any listener who is interested, reach out to David if you're interested as a board member or if you're interested in joining the movement in any way. I think it's so important to have faith because I feel a lot of the time when people don't operate from place of God and put it first, I think it's a matter of time when it kind of gets you and it torments you. And I think Satan just these days, what I see also in the world, it's like stealing identities. There are so many paradigm shifts happening. And I feel that at the same time, Jesus also called up a lot of the very few people that he handpicked. And I think that leads such a movement like you with the mega church. I feel it's really a spiritual war. Like anything that is like happening and it's like reflecting in the physical world, like what's happening. It's a real thing that I also experienced, through my journey, as we before mentioned, was rape, kidnap, abusive relationships, then giving life to Jesus, but then also not just being a crippled Christian, like by word and name, but like practicing that, like the Ten Commandments, like what does that mean in a romantic relationship? How does my leadership change and shape in business? I think a lot of the things that I've also struggled and sometimes people confront me with, which I'm also curious to hear your perspective, is that many Christians, they think that they shouldn't talk about money. They think they cannot be profitable and do certain things, or they feel very restricted, that like Bible is very restrictive. But it is not the case. I mean, like freedom, there is a definition that people really misunderstand with that. And you know, a lot of figures in the biblical figures as well, they were really wealthy, and there is a way to make money, so the source of God, and it's about what you do with it when you have a calling. So like what did you had any, you know, these confrontations or perspectives where you balance profitability as a business owner, but then also you're faithful and that's okay? Like, what's your view on this?
Well, I believe money is a tool. Money
Mm.
is necessary to live a comfortable life. I never considered myself rich. Even when I was making a few $1 million a year, I had an apartment at Trump World Tower, a $4 million apartment. But let me tell you something, I was the poorest guy in the building. I'd speak to people, I tell them I just made $3 million this year, and they'd say, $3 million? I spent $3 million to have Elton John sing at my wife's birthday party. Like it was nothing. $3 million is a night out. So I looked at money as a tool. And
Mm.
today, in the United States of America, there are 23 million millionaires in America. I mean, being a millionaire is just middle class. It's not rich. It's
Yeah.
comfortable. It's comfortable middle class. So, look, I don't mind getting rich. There's nothing wrong with that as long as you do it right. You're mindfully ethical. I believe Mark Cuban, for example, he's a very mindfully ethical person. Look at Taylor Swift, very mindfully ethical. She gives away a big portion of what she makes to her staff. I believe she gave one of her, not one, a number of her truck drivers like six figures in bonuses.
Mm.
Okay. So the one thing about me, if I make a lot of money, I will share the wealth.
Mm.
And I'm looking to build a church. Yes, you know, to be honest, the church will take care of me as a pastor, as someone who makes the church work. I'm entitled to have my housing taken care of, for example. And I'm
Mm.
entitled to live in a very nice house. I'm not saying I want to live in something substandard, but I give it my all. I always give it my all. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm working 14 hours a day, Ozen. I'm up at 4 a.m. I'm on the internet. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm preaching at 7 a.m. And
Mm.
I envision preaching continuously for the rest of my life. Just
Mm.
remember, I missed one day since June 2023. Since Shanae Murray, God bless her, she beat me up and said I had to go live. I mean, you
Mm.
don't say no to Shanae when she's insistent. And
Yeah.
I went live, okay, in June, and I made the commitment to her to go live 6 days a week, which I've
Mm.
done since June. I'll be there Sunday. Saturday's my day off. Today's Friday. Sunday, I'll be there at 7 a.m. I'll be
Mm.
live on LinkedIn at 7:30 for a Bible study. I just made the commitment to do Bible
Mm.
study. So I'm committed. I'm committed to God. I'm committed to the ministry. I'm committed to bringing people to God. I'm
Mm.
committed to mindful ethics. I'm committed to myself. And you mentioned earlier being angry. I don't want to be angry at anyone because I resonate with some of these people. And the man that is retaliating against me right now, I mean, the
Mm.
man that has taken me off my pain medication, causing me pain. And I mean, I bring this up because I can't see any reason whatsoever why I have to be in pain. Okay.
Mm.
And, you know, am I angry? No, I'm frustrated that I'm being retaliated against because I exercised my First Amendment rights, just like Michael
Mm.
Cohen. And Michael Cohen was tortured, and I will use that word, I am being tortured. Okay. I'm
Mm.
not being tortured by being crucified. I'm not being tortured by being whipped. Okay.
Mm.
But I'm a 64-year-old man. I'm in pain. And medication was prescribed by a licensed physician. And because Patrick McFarland's office doesn't like this medication, or whatever reason, they want to retaliate
Mm,
against me. It's not what they think I should be taking. I
yeah.
mean, they threatened to send me to jail. It's not right. It's retaliation because I really shouldn't even be in this program. I was in another program, and it
Mm,
was so much less restrictive. So much less restrictive. I only have a few months left, but
mm,
uh, the big thing is also they're preventing me from calling myself pastor, and to me, that's a big thing. That's
yeah.
almost, I mean, that's as important as the medication issue. The medication issue doesn't affect people out there. I mean, just think about this, Ozan. If you listen to me, I'm claiming I'm innocent. I'm not guilty. I didn't do anything wrong. If anything, I believe God paid me back from when I was a kid. Because when I was a teenager, I did things that should have put me in jail. Let me be honest. I should have gone to jail. I was a scoundrel as a businessman when I was a teenager. When I was 16 years old, I was horrible. You wouldn't want to do business with me. I would cheat, but I got away with it. And now, back in 2009, I go to jail for something I didn't do. And that's God, and I accept that. Maybe God's just paying me back, and I had to go through this. And
Yeah, very
you know,
interesting. I mean, thank you so much for sharing very openly your story. I think there's so many wisdom that we can learn from your story as well. I think it comes like really back to keep going with faith, and you're showing that through your prayers on LinkedIn. So props to you for your consistency. I always see on LinkedIn David Vogel is doing a live like popping up. So yeah, it's doing something like, whether it's changing like thousands life, one life, like I think like you already build your community, and I think and I feel that it's still the beginning for a lot of the things that are upcoming. I think no matter the age, like God is not done with you. I can feel that in the spirit that there's a lot of amazing things and blessings happening. And I pray that you will get your sixth child and that you can rebuild the life and the way you want with your future wife and everything that you're doing. So I'm very inspired and I thank you for your leadership, leading by this with so much positivity and honor and just like reminding people on the basic principles of humanity, of love and ethics, which a lot of people kind of forget these days and they just go after the one, they're very blind to it. But it's really about the consistency and everyday's life and part of the lifestyle. So thank you for inspiring. As lastly, I know that you also do the Project Sunrise with your son. For people who are interested in that, can you like tell people how people can work with you for this project?
yes, Project Sunrise is my son's business. The focus is on getting free, I will emphasize free solar energy systems for businesses paid for by the United States government under the Inflation Reduction Act. Most, not all, but most small businesses in the United States of America qualify for up to a $2 million solar energy system, which is
Wow.
paid for by government benefits. It's amazing. What Project Sunrise does, what my son's business does, is they apply for those government benefits. It's a complex process. And
Mhm.
then after they get approved for a grant, they'll build the system. They'll put the system in so it's one-stop shopping. They'll get you the money and they'll build the system. It's a great program. Project Sunrise just got a local client here in New Hampshire, $849,000 in free money from the United States government. That's in one of my newsletters. It's a $1.7 million system, and the tax credits, the other government benefits pay for the rest. So basically, this individual had an electric bill of about $130,000 a year. With this $1.7 million system, which is paid for by the United States government, I mean, they eliminate $130,000 a year in expenses. You just add that as a business person. You just add that to the bottom line. You EBITDA, I mean, just went up 130K a year. If you sell the business, if you're getting 4 or 5 times earnings, that's worth $600,000 to $700,000 to you.
Wow,
If
but
that
it's incredible. I never really heard about that. I mean, it's like as almost if you won a lottery in a different sense and integrating business strategically, what's already out there. So that's great. I can put your links below of your LinkedIn, your socials, and everything, your newsletter. So everyone, if you're interested in learning more about the Sunrise Project or about the Mega Church Online, where you can join as a potential board member, reach out to David. And anything, questions, faith-related business, you can reach out. I think there's so much we can learn from this, and with the right information. If there's any great takeaway that you had from this audio experience with us, please share it with me and David. Tag us on social media. What key takeaway you implement, because at the end of the day, it's really about also the actions that we take from this. And we're very excited to hear about you. Thank you again, David, for being here with me, for your time and for inspiring. We're praying for greater health, more abundance, in a way that you can rebuild your life. And for everyone that is listening, also in the name of Jesus, bless you and that you have the success that you wish in your life. So thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome. And it was a pleasure.